Hi, welcome to yet another exciting edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name is Robert Winters.
Good evening. My name is Susana Segat, and we were so happy that our special guest decided to come back for the second half hour. Introduce yourself, please.
Tim Toomey.
It's our tradition.
Glad to be back. It's been a long time.
So, as Robert mentioned the first half hour, Tim Toomey is a city councilor, and he's also a state rep. And I think that that really works out well for Cambridge because you you see the big picture and you can work in the local level too. Can we just talk I know that there's a lot, we're going to talk about the city council, but can we talk about the State House for a minute?
Sure.
I know that tomorrow is Rule 10 Day.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is every 2 years when the term starts, all of the legislators file their bills and the year goes by and then comes Rule 10 Day, when all of the bills have to be coming out of committee for them to be passed until the end of the term.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow's the big day, and so if your bill doesn't come out of committee, it's pretty much dead. So that means you've had to do a lot of work there, right, to get your things moved, or how does that happen?
Well, I think there was probably around 6,000 bills filed at the beginning of
Not you,
of the
though.
term. Not by me, no.
Okay.
Well, come on, get going.
And each bill is assigned to a committee. Whether it's transportation related, it goes to transportation committee. Energy goes to the different committee. And every bill that's filed has a public hearing where people come testify for or against, and then the committee reviews each bill. And so, of the 6,000 bills that are filed, maybe 30 might become law over a 2-year period. It's a very small amount that actually become law.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow.
And that's usually a good thing.
Yeah, well, depends. Some of the bills, the bottle bill.
Yeah, except
they've
for
been pushing
your own bill.
something like the bottle bill for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I would love
Yeah.
to see that signed into law. But tomorrow is like today. I received probably around. I'm a vice chair of the Revenue Committee, and there must have been about 150 bills that we're going to put into study, because you have to report out what's going to happen.
Right.
You either put the bill into study, which technically keeps it alive, or you put it in ought not to pass, which means rejected, or you report it out ought to pass, which is favorable. Then
And it
if it's
moves.
reported out, then it goes to the bills in third reading, and hopefully then, so it's a very long process, but tomorrow is the deadline for all the bills to be reported out one way or another, so the
Now-
clerk will be very busy
Oh, yeah.
today and
Now,
tomorrow.
that doesn't relate to, when we had Sal DiDomenico on here recently, he's talking about he's on the conference committee for this elections reform bill.
Yes,
So that's totally separate. That's
Totally
just,
separate, right.
that's going independently, right?
No, that's a bill that's already moved.
that's a
right?
bill that's moving,
It's
yeah.
passable,
There's
but two different versions.
the House version and the Senate version.
All right.
So when there's differences in each bill, the conference committee is set up, 6 members, 3 from the House, 3 from the Senate, and then whatever comes out of that out of that conference committee, there's no further amendment. So you have to vote that bill up or down. You cannot amend it.
Right.
So if what you had in there originally is dropped, you can't then file an amendment and put it
Now,
back in.
something will come out of that, because at least according
We
to
hope,
Sal,
yeah.
there were some things that everybody agreed with.
I think majority of it, I think people did agree with.
All
I
right.
think.
Are there
Well,
some
might
of
be-
it that you can tell us about so that people can know?
Well, I think the big, and I'm not part of the conference committee, but, the online voter registration, which is important, pre-registering young people before they reach the age of 18. The big difference, I think, is the same-day voter
Yeah,
registration.
right.
In which
That's the difference between the House and the Senate?
I think the Senate had it in there for
They-
same day,
they
and the
did,
House
but the
did
House did not. And that was that's
And
a
I
pretty
think
big
It's a
chasm.
pretty, yeah, the clerks who, in most communities, are the election commissioners. Cambridge has its own separate department, but
Yep.
most small communities don't have a separate election department. It's the clerk that does that.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's the bureaucracy that's stopping
They're
it.
not
I think it's the
thrilled.
bureaucracy, and,
Yeah.
one of the issues, I'm not there yet, to be honest, on the same-day voter registration. When I look at, like, the last presidential election, when the lines are, 100 in line at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then obviously you have 50 people who I want to register,
Yeah.
you're going to have to hire additional people to be there the day. How do you know, verify that they were there, So that, to me, and I think as technology improves, it maybe can be done. But, to me, it's been involved so long, there's no excuse of not being registered to vote before that day of the election. And
It's
for whatever, I just find,
It's a pretty liberal system now. It's just a
it's so,
3
I
weeks
mean,
or so
right,
before or
yeah,
something.
2 to 3
It's-
weeks. And you
it's
can
easy.
register anywhere, the post
Yeah.
office, any government offices, the libraries, I mean, it's
So are there any bills that you're championing that you think are really good for Cambridge, or is it?
well, I mean, as I said earlier, the bottle bill, I think,
Talk to us a
is
little bit about that.
But that's been kicking around for a number of years.
This is
We
the,
thought
the
we-
extended bottle bill?
The
or-
extended bottle bill is for the nickel deposit
right.
on the water bills, water bottles, juice bottles, so that, right now it's the deposits only
Carbonated
on.
only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I heard that they were trying to put it on the ballot as a
It's probably
question.
gonna go on the ballot if we don't. A
So how
couple of
does
years
that
ago, we
work?
came close and the advocates withdrew from putting on the ballot, but I think they're gonna, probably will end up on the ballot in November.
So how does
We're
that
hoping it
work?
would be
If it's,
legislative.
if it's at the State House and it's a ballot question, how does that work? So if it passes the ballot, then the State House has to accept it?
Well, it'll be
what
law
ma-
if it passes, right. It would-
So
if it's a ballot
so
question,
the bill
no
goes
matter
away
what-
and it's,
Right, yeah. We're hoping that the House and Senate can do it and the government would sign, but I'm not sure that will take place right now. Some people feel that it's instead of saying tax, that it's a fee for people, and that additional, the bottle industry is very much against it. Additional,
because of the handling?
the handling charges, and, they're proposing they would put more money into more aggressive recycling. And, I think there was just a report Boston, I think it's like only about 30% people in Boston recycle. I think Cambridge is a much higher rate, but, so just in terms of environmental bill and, for the environment and keeping the streets clean and thing, I think I think it has to take place, so I'm a big proponent of that, so.
Good. So what do you think the chances are? Will it get out of committee?
Well, that's the
question. So we'll know tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Now,
How
I
exciting.
heard rumor that there were quite a few things that might make it to the ballot this year for initiative petitions or referendum questions. Have you,
Well, the
you know,
repeal of the casinos, that's still.
That's a ballot
That's in the
question?
court.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's in the court system right now, whether that the Attorney General said it could not, but I think they brought it to the court to put it on there. There was, what was the other big, there was a number, I don't know if the election law stuff was on that.
One of the things that I sort of understand will come, if it doesn't come this year, it'll come soon enough, is pretty much complete legalization of marijuana, like what happened.
Oh, that's going to be a ballot question too?
I don't know if it's really in the queue for this
I think
year.
2016
Yeah,
probably will
it won't
come.
be long. I kind of figured that's just sort of been the trend. So, that's probably on the horizon
Yeah.
sooner or later. But,
But we have to do a better job on the medical marijuana dispensary. That has been a fiasco and been very disappointing at the Department
What's
of.
been happening there?
Well, as you know, the medical marijuana dispensary law, there was
It took
35.
effect, right?
Took effect. There were to be 35 licenses awarded statewide, 5 in each county. And speaking from the Cambridge was awarded, companies submitted proposals to the Department of Public Health, who then had a scoring system to review all of that. Cambridge was selected to have that.
To have one.
To have one. You only have one.
All you can have is one.
I think Boston had 2 because of the number of people.
Okay.
But Cambridge was one. I think, I want to say, in Middlesex, I'm trying to think of the other one. I don't know if it was Malden. I forget who the other was in Framingham. But Cambridge definitely had one.
Okay.
And they, around the state, when they found that the companies were not, didn't have the full, they weren't following the letter of the law. They were putting in things there that they met with elected officials and that they had given approval, and none of that was true. The one in Cambridge proposed to put it in a residential building in the neighborhood, which Cambridge had zoned that you could only put it in either
Right.
North Point or
so
Alwyn.
it was in complete violation.
And it
of
was
what we
complete
passed.
violation of that, and it didn't have the necessary security. It's,
So what happened to it?
they withdrew, there was,
Oh.
that building, worked with my office, and we worked with the state to voice our displeasure. The business owner then withdrew from that location, is now looking somewhere else in the city of Cambridge. But it's, to me, I think it should be in a medical type building. You're gonna have to need a lot of security. You're talking a lot of money that's gonna be involved, and a lot of marijuana that's gonna be stored in these facilities. So the whole security issue, I think, hasn't been vetted the way it should be. And one thing in Colorado that I didn't realize till recently, with the legalization, the banks, because the federal government, it's not legal, the banks cannot take the cash.
Because it'll
So
look like
they're
they're
using-
washing it, right?
Well, they're spraying the cash with perfume and disinfectant because the banks can't accept that cash if they owe
Because
it.
it smells?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting, no, because it's against the federal law. So the banks will be participating in something that's
Right, it's
illegal by
something
accepting the cash. It'd be
Right.
like it's money laundering or something. But,
Yeah.
so it's something that I just found out a couple weeks ago.
Brave
So it's
new world.
it's
Yeah.
a huge burden on the
Yeah.
legitimate owners of these enterprises, because they have to, that's dangerous to
They
have
would
so much cash.
cash. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah.
So it needs a little tweaking. But the Department of Public Health, they're now reviewing it, but there were some applicants that had, criminal records for selling illegal drugs before.
Right.
It's just, one was next
Things
to
you don't
a
expect.
daycare center, it just was not, so
Yeah. Yeah, no.
unfortunate,
Yeah.
let's put it that way.
Seriously. Yeah.
You deal with very interesting issues.
Never dull. That's why I love the job, believe me, the jobs, yeah.
All right, we can talk about the city council now.
And again, I may just sort of bounce around a little bit wildly here. One of the things, because I know when another little bit of business before the council last night was sort of a let's look into our options as far as having the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority play a role in the development of the Foundry building. Right. And this was just sort of to find out what the process was the order, or was more specific last night?
Well, I think it's to work, the redevelopment authority is like an
Before, tell
autonomous board
tell
of-
people what the Foundry building is first.
The Foundry building is a 60,000 square foot building on Rogers, between Rogers and Penn Street, and adjacent to Third Street. It was given to the city of Cambridge, 4 or 5 years ago, as part of the mitigation for Alexandria Real Estate, who was looking for some zoning relief in Kendall Square. They're building right now at Binney and Third. It's a huge between Third and Second. And as part of the mitigation, they gave that building to the city of Cambridge. And then across the street, they donated land for a 2.5 acre park. So that was part of, the neighbors. There was a working group from the neighborhood that worked with Alexandria, and that was part of the mitigation. They're going to give $700,000 for acquisition of open space. So it's a 60,000 square foot building.
A shell? Is it empty?
No, it's empty,
Okay.
but it needs a lot of work
Okay.
inside, there's no question. It was for either municipal or community use.
Okay.
And at the time, some people wanted to put, the school department headquarters there, move some offices from the city, but I think, and some people Bob Haley wanted to sell the building.
Well, others wanted to just sort of turn it into an income producer.
Yeah.
Just
Like
basically
renting it out.
And renting it,
to
well,
entrepreneurial space.
A lot of people want to see the startups. So, I mean, it should be a mixed use. There was 10,000 square feet specifically for the neighborhood, and a lot of people in East Cambridge feel that 10,000 square feet should be used exclusively, with the East End House or the
Right.
seniors in that area and stuff. So what we're wading through right now is what is the best use to accommodate the
Yeah.
uses. The big
And-
thing is the steam now that people feel. Some people feel early education.
So that's unsettled, right? Now, the
Yes,
programming
but we
is a
voted
big
last night
discussion.
was $6 million to start the renovations, for
Right.
the mechanics of it, roof, things
Yeah.
like that. But the redevelopment.
Can you do that without knowing what you're going to do with it?
This work has to be done, the electrical, plumbing, things like that,
Elevators.
elevators,
Oh, I see.
handicap accessibility, really probably a new roof.
Yeah.
So it's.
You have to do that no matter what.
No matter what.
The full building
So-
will be 12 million, 20 million that's a lot more than the 6 million
Than the
just to
6
get the
million.
shell
I
in
see.
order.
This is
Yeah.
just to get it into acceptable.
So everyone
hands.
agrees on the council to spend that money and get it done. That's a
get-
good
right.
move.
Yeah.
Now the big discussion, shall we say,
Yeah.
should be on what
What goes inside.
goes
Yeah.
in there.
But one,
Combination of people want, for nonprofits,
Yep.
use, like the STEAM
Yeah.
thing, the startups, a little bit maybe
And let's just say
retail.
STEAM is.
Some people thought housing for artists, some artist
Housing.
units there.
yeah, I don't think that'll
So I don't think that'll happen, but there's a wide range
Certainly,
of opinions
a lot of people
on
coming
that.
out and wanting an arts center of some sort.
Just for the arts.
So it's very unsettled.
So how do you see this moving? What happens now? What should happen?
There'll be a lot more discussion as we move forward into the different committees.
One interesting new twist, at least I find it very interesting, is the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority, which was sort of not exactly in great favor a few years ago, but they got a new board.
The new board and
They're
director.
now, the public perception of them is sort of now is totally changed,
Yeah.
180 degrees. They are like
They're wanted.
they're potentially the great facilitator
Right.
of things that would be.
And they don't come under certain regulations.
little bit of a workaround,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but that to me is very interesting. It seems like things are kind of trending in that direction in terms of people being very willing to accept that as sort of a vehicle for making things happen.
Right, and the redevelopment authority, their whole function was always just Kendall School.
Well, not
Kendall Square
always,
area.
not always. I mean, they did other projects in their early years outside of Kendall, but
Well, the model cities in the Wells and Harrington.
they even did projects way on the other side of town. But the thing is that it has become defined purely by Kendall
Kendall,
Square for so long that for them to now be talking about doing projects, they have a website now where they're actually looking into possible projects and actually a very short timeline for developing a strategic plan, like in the next few months. And one of the things that are listed as possible was the Vale Court one there. Of course, that's privately owned, so
That's
it's not
right.
like,
Where's that?
And Bishop Allen Drive, just before
around the corner from
City Hall. Yeah.
But it's been sitting there
That's
abandoned
been,
for
it's really
ages.
bad shape, yeah. I'm
Yeah, but
surprised it's not
but
been condemned.
Potentially a great site for some housing or whatever, And I think, does Cambridge Redevelopment Authority have eminent domain
They do, yeah.
capacity?
Mhm.
So,
I worked there actually too,
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of my
That's
other.
right, yeah.
Past
So,
lives.
but what a change from a few years ago, where people were saying Cambridge Redevelopment Authority. Oh my God,
Yeah.
they're totally unaccountable. To now, like, yeah, maybe we can take advantage of the capacity.
People actually go
of
to
this
their board
area.
meetings now.
People are going there like as if they're the great deliverer here. I find that a fascinating turnaround.
Yes.
Very, very interesting to me. Absolutely. Right.
Well, they had some good appointments and they're
Yeah,
cleaning
Former
house.
city
They're
clerk
clean-
Margaret Drury, former city councilor Kathy
Kathy
Bourne,
That's right.
It's a great board
It's a
all
great
around.
board, yeah.
and-
Conrad Crawford, who's from East Cambridge.
Yeah, Conrad's great. I mean, honestly, it's a good bunch all around, and the fact that they're really talking up housing, if they can play a role in like the Volpe site at some point in the future, I think you'll see some really great things happen. It's just a matter of whether that property becomes available.
Mhm.
But I think it'd be in good hands if it really does. That would be really something. I have one thing I'm going to ask your point of view on. So there was so we were talking about election reform earlier, but there was a council order just to look into the possibility of changing the way we do some of our PR counts from the Cincinnati method to a different kind of method here. Now, I haven't heard any, I think I got some inquiry from this law department people in the election commission about it, but I haven't heard anything back. That's still sort of being researched.
Yeah, we haven't heard back on that.
Yeah. I don't know if you even have a point of view about this.
Yeah, not really, no. It really showed during the recount how much it can change by,
Yeah.
when the deviation, when even one vote throws off that,
That's
like when
right.
Leland Chang picked up one vote, when the redistribution kind of went a different way.
You could move 30 votes.
Moved, yeah, very
Yeah.
easy.
Do you know what Robert found out for me? When I ran for the school committee the last time, I lost by 6 votes. You've probably forgotten, but I remember this.
I can't imagine really losing.
I lost by 6 votes, and during the recount, I think, I don't know, it didn't change much, but if it had been done the other way, what's the other way called?
It's called fractional transfer.
If it had been done,
If it's a method that's completely independent of ballot order, so you could just shuffle the
Yeah.
ballots, and it doesn't matter. But that's the one exception. I actually ran all
If
the
I
elections.
had done that, I would have won.
Then you would have won.
But
Wow.
that's the one exception, because it was like a razor thin margin. You know, it's a sort of a random thing anyway. But the thing is that you would have gotten the same winners with this modified method for like the last.
Yeah,
at
Joe
least-
Grassi would have lost again.
Yeah, all,
We-
the,
he
all
did it.
the
We
ones
did
that I
that.
ran, it was no change except for that one, which
Wow.
was, but that was the most.
I think I should demand back pay.
There
I'll
we
file
go.
a bill.
Right. Actually, you know, the point I've been trying to make about that, though, is that the real reason for considering a change is not so much because it's more transparent or this or like that. It's that it completely eliminates the incentive for a candidate to seek a recount
Yeah.
for all the wrong reasons.
Oh.
It's
You
much
know,
cleaner.
It's just much cleaner, and honestly, if anybody who went to the recount and watched how much time they took matching ballots, none of that would be necessary.
Mhm.
None, if they would make this change. So I think people need to at least understand some of the other benefits.
But this, even if it goes through the city council, it still has to go through the state house, right? Doesn't that-
You
Is
know,
that part of
I
the
think it has to go
charter
through
with
the-
the election?
I tell you, I heard one person said, well, that maybe that wouldn't be necessary. That's why I'm kind of curious to hear what the law department comes back and says about it, because I would assume, because there's a law, the original law that created this says you can switch to a different method, but it has to be something that was in practice in the year 1938. And I don't think we had the computers kind of
I'm sure we
churning in
didn't.
1938, so I'm not optimistic. But, you know, the way it works now, and you've probably seen these come before you in your role as a state representative, people do some tweaks. Worcester changed their planning charter a little bit, you know, and it's typically done these days, I believe,
Some
by
of us do
special
it
act.
now, but how they fill a vacancy. So that
Yeah,
has to be approved. It was a home rule petition from some of them. Now
yeah. I mean,
it's
you
still
could,
at-
you
It
could
probably
do,
would have to be approved by.
yeah,
state,
you
I'd
can
say.
go like charter commission route, but that's really, really unwieldy. But special acts of the legislature
Right, it would
tend
be
to be
just
the
amend,
easy
yeah.
fix. And Sally Domenico, he seemed to suggest that as long as it's a reasonable technical correction, that the legislature is reasonably well disposed to home rule petitions.
Yeah, they
Well, if the
usually-
councils want it.
If they really want it, yeah. So, you know, anyway, it's something to look
No one has
forward
brought it up for discussion.
Well, until
So
the
we'll
report
see what
has
the
to
law
come back.
department says. and
Well,
we
you've
go from
had
there.
huge issues to deal with. This one is
This is
comparatively.
small. I was just kind of curious about your point of view about it, you know. Yeah, I think when people start seeing the election results reported in, like, you know, with long decimals, maybe they'll be a little uneasy, but we can kind of make it nicer, I think.
But the recount actually was sort of I mean, 'cause I brought some people who never were exposed to that. I mean,
It's
the Longfellow
so
School.
great,
So
isn't
Yeah.
it?
people had no idea, you know, they were amazed
the
by this
best.
whole,
Yes.
you know, it was really something. So it's a once in a life, you have to
It's a
participate
community
in once. It
event.
really was, you know, so.
It's
Yeah.
a community event. It's sorely lacking. I love that stuff.
Right. Now, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left here, but one topic that was sort of a big thing with the MIT Kendall petition a year ago was for, you know, I don't know how meaningful it was at the time exactly, but it was a big push for MIT to do something about doing a better job of housing their graduate students and
students.
others. You know, and then they recently came out with a pretty well done report about that. But you know, is that to what degree? I don't. I know. There was a request to have an MIT representative come and present to the council. So at least there seems to be some interest on the council to sort of get themselves involved in this.
Mhm.
So I mean, do you have any sort of reaction to what MIT is talking about, thinking about, or doing or
Well,
not doing?
I think it's important that they take on a bigger share of doing the graduate housing. I know in my neighborhood, I see a lot of the graduate students, that, you know, even undergraduates that are walking to
Yeah.
MIT. So they are taking apartments from you know, neighborhood people, so there's no question about that. And, you know, students, you know, 4 or 5 in one unit, you know, they very easily,
That's
you know, they can do that.
they've often
So,
done it
but
that way.
I think clearly MIT, and I think Harvard's done it to a certain extent, but MIT has done a lot on Vassar Street with that, you know, undergraduate housing, that
There's
those
actually-
huge,
If you look at
structure
them,
that-
in their housing report, all of the more recent big housing for graduate students have actually clustered not over in Kendall Square, but over close to Vassar Street.
yeah, just a lot
Yeah.
going on down
So
there.
I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, they will put some down in Kendall Square, I'm sure. And one of the presentations I went to from MIT seemed to indicate that. But I somehow expect that they'll just sort of grow it this little sort of graduate student village that seems to be developing on the sort of the other end of the campus here.
Mm.
I think they were talking about something in the vicinity of maybe 600 beds as sort of a guaranteed minimum demand, plus another 400 or 500 quote swing space, because, you know, honestly, when they shut down a dorm at MIT, they got to put people somewhere, and you know, you can't just throw them off into the neighborhood.
Well, when they did renovations, some of the Memorial Drive, they were putting them in either Hyatt or the down at the
That's always
Marriott. That was
always a
they were
short-term
paying, yeah.
solution. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see how that develops. You know, I guess some other things that sort of a kind of crossover from Kendall down to Central Square is, I'm actually looking out the window right now where Alex Twining is got some proposals coming here. We haven't heard any specifics
Nothing
yet.
specific. They were reaching out at the end of last year, but then
Yeah,
but then
I think they're still sort of sizing up their options. You know,
I think their initial one was an extremely tall building.
yeah,
but
which was
but it was nothing
politically
formal.
No,
that
it was.
they
Well, I
came
don't think that
proposed.
was a really serious
Oh.
proposal, but it was a very politically naive move to sort of put that in the mix, because then everybody was reacting to it. But I think you know, if there are some zoning changes for Central Square, and maybe there will be, maybe there won't be. I doubt whether there'll be much change. Well, I think they're
we
waiting
have
for that.
1 minute left. Before we do, I
That's
have
quick.
one big global question
Oh
to
boy,
ask.
here we go.
Okay, so March, you know, is Women's History Month.
Mhm.
So today, on the radio, listening to a show, I found out that March is actually Frozen Food Month. Do you think there's a correlation?
Frozen.
Well,
I've never heard. That's a,
we'll have to consult with Clarence
I was not
Birdseye
happy about
this.
that. Women's History Month has so little time as it is, so you didn't pass that bill.
no, not at all.
All right.
Actually, there's something at City Hall tomorrow with discussion. I think Sheila Russell, Alice Wolf, and
We're down to our last 10.
another.
Oh, look it up on the webpage
Look it up on the
then.
webpage. There was some discussion that the mayor's putting on for
We have to
Women's
watch that.
History.
All right.
Yeah.
This is Cambridge Inside Out. Will you
Out.
come back?
Absolutely.
Great.
All right.